Good morning. Now, I don't know how you got on this weekend, but I had about an hour and a half last night binging on Doctor Who and Ncuti Gatwa, who is excellent. I loved the Bogeyman and the babies. I thought they were extraordinary and charming and not preachy, which was such a change from all the stuff from the previous series. The preachiness seems to have gone, and the energy seems to have been put back in. The energy and a a certain theatricality. There's certainly politics, and the abortion debate is there, immigration, asylum seekers, the adoption debate, all of that is there, with references to the destruction of Gallifrey as a genocide, the destruction of the Time Lords as a genocide, and it's interesting that that is pronounced by Ncuti. But I think it's uh, I think that sort of reboot that you get in the beginning of this Space Babies episode is quite entertaining, um, and and there's an element of the person that Ncuti reminds me of more than anybody else is John Pertwee, and more John Pertwee than Tom Baker. He's got that. He's got that theatricality. And it comes out so obviously in The Devil's Chord, which has got which has got more than a touch of John Pertwee costuming about it, uh, and and I remember what was her name, Jo Grant, or I can't remember whether it was the name of the actress or the name of of the part of the assistant, but Ruby Sunday, Millie Gibson, when she's togged out in the 1963 Abbey Road studio gear and watching the Beatles sing about dogs, reminds me so much of that assistant from Doctor Who with the back combed hair and the beehive, and also, of course, reminds me terribly of Miss, what was her name? Miss Rosina or something. Miss Rosalind in a Romper Room. I don't know if you remember that. Gosh, this is all going back to the 1960s. It's quite hard plucking all these funny little memories. Dissector Membra. But they do come crowding back. And Cilla Black, I can remember the Cilla show on television vividly. Either the Cilla show or the Rolf show, and probably the latter we shouldn't mention now. But he was extraordinary in the way that he painted on live on camera and then danced around. And nobody does that anymore, just as nobody really does that sort of Cilla thing anymore, of just being Cilla and singing and the occasional dance routine by this core group of dancers, and very Spartan sets. And it was a lovely Saturday evening form of entertainment. So you got BBC, you got Doctor Who, followed by Cilla, and I can't remember whether Z Cars was on ITV or the BBC, probably ITV actually. And then and then it was probably time for bed. And I'm sure there were things like Oh Brother and Derek Nimmo doing something extraordinary, and maybe Call My Bluff turning up once BBC arrived. Oh, once BBC Two arrived. But we're lacking so much of that. The the inventiveness of simplicity. and what we seem to have in contrast is so much complexity. And this reboot of Doctor Who, with the cute on the one side and the fear on the other, the bogeyman is really a very fearsome creature, as indeed is the Jinx, played by I forget who she is. One of anyway, one of the drag artists from Drag Show, and it's again it brings back more than a hint of John Nathan Turner, and maybe John Nathan Turner comes in the latter part of John Pertwee's period, but it's definitely there, and I think there's there's lots to it. There's lots to it, and I love the choreography, and I loved the joke about the lost singing, but both with Cilla Black and with the Beatles, and I think I think there's room for this reboot of Doctor Who, and I hugely recommend it. Hugely recommend it. It's tremendous.